So today we have Ambre David and Sarah Varela. So Ambre David did her PhD in 2016 in urban eco-hydrology at the Sorbonne University in France, at the Institute of Ecology and Environmental Sciences of Paris. And now she's a project leader in environmental strategy at ALTO-STEP, so she will probably present it a little bit, a company specialized in sustainable urbanisms and environmental engineering.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ambre David. I am really happy to be with you today. And I really thank you for having me and listening to me. I have a PhD in urban ecology, and I defended my thesis in 2016. Then in 2017, I found a job in a first job in design office, specialized in rainwater management in urban area. And now I work in an environmental design office in urban planning. So during this presentation, I will try to share with you my professional experiences from academia to design office. So for me, this image of meanders is very telling, and for several reasons. The first reason is because of my thesis. My thesis was a very big step in my professional life, and my subject was about water and the impact of water stress on street trees in Paris. The second reason is because meanders reflect a lot of my professional journey, and it hasn't, to be honest, it hasn't been exactly a straight line. In fact, it was more like that. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but this is kind of what happened to me during the last decade. And I still really don't know where exactly I put my thesis in this universe plan, but maybe in the stones or the boat, I don't know. I still don't know, but all I want to say here is that I think I never really intended at first to be where I am right now. It wasn't a clear plan to do university, then thesis, then design office. And to be honest, it wasn't the plan at first. I will explain it later. To sum up this journey, I would say that it's been kind of a mix between successive opportunities and a real willing of choosing what I love most when I had to make a choice. So to begin with, I always have a real passion for science, biology, and living things. So naturally, when I was a child, and as many child, I wanted to be a vet. So after I graduated in high school, I decided to pass the vet exam and chose to go to university to prepare it. So as you probably already understand, it didn't really work for me. And you have to know, because maybe you don't know that in France, you only have 2 tries for passing the vet exam. After that, it's kind of over. So after some time to recover from this failure, I made some soul searching, discussed a lot with my family, my sister, etc., and decided to keep going in university. So at the same time I was preparing for the vet exam in university, I was also passing my license degree in biology. And it was during those 3 years that I discovered what ecology is, and to be honest, ecology kind of blown my mind at this time and still does today. I think maybe this failure was finally a really good thing for me, because my master and then my thesis been amazing years. I met fabulous people and teachers. I learned a lot as I was becoming a doctor in ecological science, but also and overall, I think I learned a lot as human from this experience. So after I defended my thesis, and for many reasons, I decided to quit research. One of these reasons is because there are less and less career perspective in French research. And this is mainly why I had to make a very difficult choice to quit academia for good and leave behind a career as a researcher. And a career with clear steps like postdoc, researcher job, and then professor job with a lot of work and maybe luck. So it was really not easy for me, because as soon as I discovered academia, I kind of knew that I belong here. So leaving it was heartbreaking, even if I knew at that time that it was the best choice for me. So never mind, I thought to myself to find another way to do science and ecology in my professional life. And it was really scary because I didn't really know how to do it and overall what to do next. And I think this is why I found it very important to share my experience today with you, because for me, it's been a very, very challenging process. So yes, I was scared with no idea of what to do and how to do it, but I knew one thing for sure. I was now a doctor in urban ecology, and it has to mean something. So now I will try to give you some of my insights of how academic skills can improve employability outside academia. You have to keep in mind that I use my personal experience to make general assumptions. So as I am not an expert in employability, nothing here is really scientific material. So I will ask you to keep that in mind during my speech. It's kind of a personal and French feedback. So after I defended my thesis, the next steps in my career journey was pretty clear. I have to find a job, then get the job with a great resume and a successful job interview, and then do the job, even if I was not really sure how to do it. So during my job research, I explored a lot of different kind of job in ecology field, and considering my thesis subjects on urban street trees, jobs in design office in urban planning was a pretty obvious choice. Also, I always had a real interest in urban ecology and how we plan cities with nature. So I think my academic experience shaped me a lot as a professional today and let me go through this process. And now that I am in this sector since 4 years, 4 or 5 years, I can say that I don't work exactly like my colleagues, which are from usually engineering schools. I'm not better, I'm not worse, I have just different skills and a different way to apprehend work. And in the next slides, I will try to explain to you how academic skills shape you as a professional. So thanks to my thesis, I know that I can become an expert very fast, obviously with some work and time. In other words, as doctors, we have the ability to ingest massive amounts of complex information and rapidly reach an expert level. And once we have internalized that skills, you know deeply that the challenge is more a challenge of conviction. Let me explain myself. You have to convince your potential employer of who you are and go beyond his perceptions. Because the problem is that employers tend to view all new joiners the same. And the perception on how a new joiner might learn the skills of a job is the same for the employers. So you have to convince your employer that you will go faster and bring something else to the table. You will be able to link very quickly technical skills and scientific literature, for instance. You will become very quickly quite precise and accurate in your job. And maybe I think it is the best skill I learned from my experience in academia, because I knew that doctors are able to learn really fast about all kinds of subjects. And here I mean really any kind of subject. For instance, during my thesis, I learned dendrochronology for studying the relation between tree growth and climate. I also learned water isotopy to find which water sources were used by street trees in urban area. And finally, I also learned ecophysiology and biochemistry to understand the carbon strategy of trees under water stress. And then, when in my first job, I learned all kinds of new methodology as environmental laws and how to do administrative file in France. I also learned how was made a project in urban planning and how to design rainwater management structures. So this flexibility and this adaptability give you the opportunity to do kind of everything if you work for it. Be careful though, I don't say it's easy. I just say doctors are able to do that. So the two first skills I just presented to you lead to another one. Doctors are able to manage complex issues and tasks, but also uncertainty and change. When you arrive in a field, you have to understand your business system, and doctors have the tendency to understand their job through an holistic approach. They tend to view and understand their role and how it fits with an entire organization. And this, I think, is due to having the reflex to read a lot of material with the most reliable content, sometimes including scientific documents, which I assure you is not done by people outside academia. This gives you a big picture of the organization, and it is not necessarily in a manager level, but you are aware of your place and what your choices mean for others in your organization. This also gives you a unique perspective to create projections and propose innovation. And those 2 points are incredibly valued by employers in today's very competitive environments. So, lastly, you should all be convinced that managing a scientific project during 3 years proves that you have strong, very strong skills in project management. You've proved that a lot with your thesis. So after I found the perfect job opportunity, I needed to apply for it with a resume. And in order to write my resume, I have to translate my somewhat fuzzy academic skills into understandable corporate skills. And this was a very challenging process. You have to understand that at that time, I had little information available about this process, little documents, little help from outside, and few articles were available to understand how to translate my academic skills and do this process. I had also very little contact to do so. Now, thankfully, you just have to Google it and you can find a lot of very useful information to do this translation, because I know it. I used it for making this presentation. So at that time, I only have my academic experience. And in thesis, we write a lot. We manipulate the language in English or in your own native language. And it allows you to translate and popularize new or complex information. And this is kind of what I have done with employers. I had to write a resume that uses terminologies and expressions that employers understand. And a little tip here, you have to very carefully watch the job offers and use their terminologies to explain what you did during your thesis. Your goal here is to use their language. This doesn't mean that you should hire pure scientific achievement, like published articles. You just should spend some time to showing and explaining them why it matters, what this conference was difficult, and why it was groundbreaking. And this should probably lead to better responsibilities and or better justification or higher salary. But these great communication skills acquired during your academic experience also allow you to do your everyday task in your office, such as formulate issues and solutions to your coworker or clients as clearly as possible. You will have to present your work, make a point in a meeting or in a report, explain and teach process to new coworker or student or even customer. And in this last case, and if you consider you are an expert on your subject, you will have a great legitimacy here, and your role is almost the one of a consultant. In France, one big difficulty for doctors going outside academia is that people don't really understand what doctors are capable of and what managing a science project consists of. Employer thinks that you are still a student and doesn't consider PhD as a real professional experience. They think doctor as junior, whereas they already have 3 years experience. And maybe I speak here more for French people, I don't know for Spanish, but you have often to argue how managing a scientific project is a first job experience. And also, they also kind of used to hire people just after their master degree. So employers are not really used to doctor profile and have few contact with academia. So here, your capacity to argument in your work can really help you during the interview, the job interview, and beyond that, maybe to justify your salary expectation or increase. You are not a student anymore, and feel free to use all of your argumental capacity to convince him of that. Academia experience help you a lot with that because it's kind of your job to write or speak about a subject and convince others about your results. It's a methodological process that you are learning or that you know already. And the expression is to defend your thesis. And you will need that anytime outside academia in a job interview, in a meeting with your client, or in a report. I found that the non-academic sector didn't use a lot of methodologies, and I mean not only scientific ones, but in other hand, they're tending to try to go as fast as possible in their production. And this situation created the feeling that professionals without academic background had difficulties to understand where they did a mistake and how they could correct it. And this even when they follow processes put in place by their organization. Anyway, I feel that the obsession of doctors to be as accurate as possible in their methodology and in their results allow them to have the ability to question themselves and their organization systems. For example, in my first job, there was no coded way to produce work, so I feel the need to create a methodology and a process. And then everyone kind of gained time and accuracy in their work. I am not really sure people outside academia could have the reflex to do so while they were producing work. The fact is, doctor can be at the same time in and above the process of work. But you have to be careful here because some employers have the tendency to believe that doctors are slow and ask themselves too many questions. And it may be true, and you will have to convince others that this time spent is in reality an investment to gain accuracy and time. And I suggest you to explain to your boss what they would gain with such an investment. Keep in mind that better accuracy means more valuable work that could be sold higher, and less time means faster production and so better margin because you are cheaper to produce. Sorry. And finally, I feel that my strongest skill as a doctor is my determination. During my thesis, I encountered many failures, but I didn't despair. And rather, I used them to progress even further. I think it's a very valuable skill for employers because you're very resistant to adversity in a very competitive environment. To add on that, I was really passionate by ecology, and naturally this passion followed me when I started working in urban planning. And passion and motivation is also a good point for employers because when I talk about my work, everyone can feel that. It says to everyone, I am here for a reason. And so you had a purpose and meaning in your work, and this, I think, naturally lead to leadership. And at last, doctors have also a lot of other skills and very important one, such as the knowledge of digital tools, which are kind of essential in a design office, for instance. For example, during my thesis and then my first job experience, I have to learn how to use digital tools and different kind of software. And the truth is, it wasn't really a challenge for me and for doctor. It's kind of a Tuesday for us. So Also, doctors are also able to have great concentration and a very strong capacity to work, but you have to be careful there because you can spend too much energy in your work, and you have to keep in mind that your career is a marathon, not a sprint. And PhD, it's kind of a long sprint, I know, but you have to be careful and know your limits in work. And finally, our academic experience gives us a strong analytic and synthesis skills that is very valuable for your employers, your coworker, but also your clients, because you make a very great work and quality work. So to conclude, I would say that my transition from academia to design office was a very challenging and soul-searching experience. The most difficult moment for me was to translate my academic skills into understandable skills for employers. In my career journey, I tried to find a way to do science outside academia, and I think there is an increasing need to create a link between research and applied science in urban planning, for instance. And doctors could be that link because they have the skill to speak both languages. They also have the ability to access a lot of jobs and becoming an expert very quickly. So if you choose this process, don't hesitate to ask for help and for opportunities. And remind you that you are a doctor, and that means something and means a lot. Thank you for listening to me, and gracias. Merci.